What happens when love is built on lies and revenge spans 15 years? Emma Rose thought she was just a struggling artist working 3 jobs to save her dying father. Sebastian Knight appeared to be a lonely tech billionaire seeking genuine connection. Their chance meeting on a late-night train was anything but coincidental. Asterisk, welcome back, beautiful people. This story is where drama meets devotion, and where one glance can rewrite destiny. Asterisk, the champagne glass shattered against the marble floor of Sebastian Knight's penthouse. Crystal fragments catching the city lights that blazed through floor-to-ceiling windows. 40 stories below, New York pulsed with life while he stood frozen in his empty palace, staring at the security footage that had just destroyed everything he thought he knew about trust. "Sir, the car is waiting downstairs." Oliver's voice cracked through the intercom, but Sebastian didn't respond. His hands trembled as he rewound the video again. There she was, Emma Rose, paint still under her fingernails from her morning art class, slipping a flash drive into his private safe. The timestamp read 3 hours ago while he'd been in Tokyo finalizing the merger that would make him the youngest tech billionaire in history, the woman he'd fallen in love with over 6 months of midnight conversations and stolen moments was a thief. Sebastian's reflection stared back from the darkened window, his charcoal suit impeccable despite the chaos in his chest. At 29, he'd built Knight Industries. From nothing, learned to read people like code, trusted no one completely. Yet Emma had slipped past every defense he'd constructed since his mother's death. When he'd discovered that even the person who claimed to love you most could lie until her final breath, the elevator chimed. Emma's keycard still worked. Another oversight that burned through him like acid. Her footsteps echoed across the polished concrete as she entered, and he could smell her signature scent of paint and vanilla before he turned around. "You're back early from Tokyo," her voice carried, that warmth that had undone him completely, but now it sounded like poison honey. She wore the same paint-stained denim jacket he'd bought her last month. The one she'd protested was too expensive. "I brought takeout from that little place you love." Sebastian turned slowly, his storm-gray eyes meeting hers across the vast space. Emma's smile faltered when she saw his expression. The takeout bag slipped from her fingers, sesame noodles spilling across his designer rug. "How long have you been working for Marcus Verne?" The question hung between them like a blade. Emma's face went white, confirming everything the security footage had suggested. Marcus Verne, his former business partner turned bitter rival. The man who'd been systematically trying to destroy Knight Industries for 3 years. "Sebastian, I can explain." Her voice broke, and for a moment, he almost believed the pain in her dark eyes was real. "Can you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty clear." He pulled out his phone, finger hovering over the video. "Want to see yourself in action?" Emma stepped forward, her hands reaching for him instinctively before falling to her sides. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." His voice was deadly quiet now, the tone that made Fortune 500 CEOs sweat. "Tell me why the woman I love has been stealing my company's secrets. Because my father is going to die if I don't." The words hit him like a physical blow. Sebastian had heard every lie, every manipulation attempt in the book, but the raw desperation in Emma's voice cut through his defenses. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face as she collapsed onto his white leather sofa. "Marcus has him, Sebastian. He's holding my father in some private medical facility, keeping him alive just enough to use him against me. If I don't give him what he wants, he'll pull the plug." Sebastian's mind raced, calculating possibilities. Marcus was ruthless enough for such a move, but Emma was smart enough to concoct a convincing lie. Prove it. Emma fumbled for her phone, with shaking hands, showing him a video message. The timestamp was from this morning. Thomas Rose sat propped up in a hospital bed, looking frail and confused, machines beeping around him. Marcus Verne's voice came from behind the camera. "Tell your daughter what happens if she disappoints me, Thomas." "Emma, baby, please just do what he says. I don't want to die in this place." The video ended. Sebastian stared at the black screen, his world tilting on its axis once again. Emma wasn't just a thief. She was a woman trapped in an impossible situation. Was forced to choose between the man she loved and the father who'd raised her. How long, he asked quietly. 6 months, since the day after we met on the train. Her voice was hollow now, emptied. Of pretense. He approached me the next morning at the coffee shop. Said he knew I'd met you, that he had a proposition. When I refused, he showed me pictures of my father being loaded into an ambulance. Said it would be a shame if he didn't make it to the hospital alive. Sebastian sank into the chair across from her, his mind spinning. The merger documents. That's what you took today, Emma nodded, unable to meet his eyes. The final terms, Marcus said. It was the last thing he needed. That after this, my father would be released. And you believed him? I had to. Her eyes finally met his, and the pain there was so raw it took his breath away. What choice did I have? Let my father die to protect your business deal. Sebastian stood abruptly, pacing to the window. The city below looked different now, more predatory, full of shadows and hidden dangers. Behind him, he could hear Emma crying softly, and it took everything in him not to turn around and comfort her. There's something else you need to know, Emma said, her voice barely a whisper. He turned back to face her, dreading whatever came next. The flash drive I took today wasn't just the merger documents. She looked up at him with eyes that held a mixture of guilt and defiance. It was also the location of your emergency backup servers, the ones with all your source code. Marcus isn't just trying to beat you in the merger. He's going to steal everything you've built and destroy you completely. Sebastian felt the floor drop out from under him. Those servers contained 5 years of proprietary code, algorithms that had taken his team countless hours to develop. If Marcus got his hands on them, Knight Industries would be finished. When is he moving against the servers? Tomorrow night. During the merger celebration, while you're distracted, Emma stood up, her chin lifted in a gesture of defiance he'd seen before, but never understood until now. I'm going to stop him, like hell you are. Sebastian's voice was ice. You've done enough damage? This is my fault, Sebastian. I have to fix it. Your fault? Emma, you were manipulated by a sociopath who kidnapped your father. This isn't on you. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. Isn't it? I made a choice every day for 6 months. Chose to lie to you. I chose to steal from you. Chose to let myself fall in love with you while I was betraying you. Her voice broke on the last words. I have to make this right. Sebastian reached for her instinctively, then caught himself. How? Emma pulled a second flash drive from her jacket pocket. I made copies of everything Marcus has on you. Financial records, correspondence, even videos of my father. He's not the only one who can play dirty. What are you proposing? We take him down together? We save my father and your company. She paused, her next words barely audible. And then I walk. Away forever. The words hit him harder than he'd expected. Emma, no. She stepped back, shaking her head. I can't ask you to forgive this. Can't ask you to trust me ever again. But I can ask you to let me help you destroy the man who forced me to hurt you. Sebastian stared at her, this woman who'd turned his world upside down twice in one evening. Emma Rose, the artist who saw beauty in broken things, who'd stolen his heart and his secrets in equal measure. The woman who was now offering to risk everything to undo the damage she'd been forced to cause. Outside, thunder rolled across the city sky, and the first drops of rain began to streak down the windows. Sebastian Knight had built his empire on calculated risks and cold logic. But as he looked at Emma, standing in his living room with tear-stained cheeks and desperate hope in her eyes, he realized he was about to make the most dangerous gamble of his life. All right, he said quietly. Let's destroy Marcus Verne. Emma's phone buzzed with an incoming message. She glanced at the screen, and her face went pale as fresh snow. What is it? She turned the phone toward him. The message was from an unknown number, but the video attachment made the sender clear. It showed Emma's father in his hospital bed, but now he was barely conscious. His breathing labored. The text below read, Your boyfriend's early return has complicated things. You have 24 hours to deliver the server locations, or Daddy takes his final breath. Oh, and Emma. Tell Sebastian I said hello. It's been too long since we've played together. Sebastian's blood ran cold as the implications hit him. Marcus hadn't, just targeted Emma randomly. This had been planned, orchestrated, personal from the very beginning. Sebastian, Emma's voice was barely a whisper. What does he mean? It's been too long since you've played together. Before he could answer, the lights in the penthouse went out, plunging them into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. Sebastian's security system began, blaring warnings as every exit sealed automatically. They weren't just planning to destroy Marcus. Vern. They were already trapped in his web. Asterisk, the emergency lighting cast blood-red shadows across Sebastian's penthouse. As his security system continued its mechanical warnings, Emma pressed herself against the cold glass of the sealed windows, watching the city lights flicker below like dying stars. The irony wasn't lost on her that she felt more trapped in luxury than she ever had in her cramped studio apartment. The building's on lockdown, Sebastian said, his fingers flying across a backup tablet. Someone's triggered the corporate espionage protocol remotely. Can you override it? Not from here. System was designed to prevent exactly that. Jaw tightened as lines of code scrolled across the screen. Marcus always was better at finding weaknesses in systems than people. Emma turned from the window, studying Sebastian's face in the red glow. You haven't answered my question. What did he mean about playing together? Sebastian's hand stilled on the tablet. When he looked up, his storm-gray eyes held a pain so deep it made her chest ache. Marcus, Vern, and I have history that goes back 15 years. What kind of history? The kind that destroys families? Sebastian set down the tablet and moved to his home bar, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey despite the early hour. The amber liquid caught the emergency lighting like captured fire. I've never told anyone the whole story, not even you. Emma accepted the glass, the warmth of the alcohol steadying her shaking hands. Tell me now. Sebastian drank deeply before speaking. My mother didn't die of cancer, Emma. That's what I tell everyone because it's easier than the truth. The confession hung between them like a physical thing. Emma set down her glass, giving him her full attention. She was Dr. Sarah Knight, one of the most brilliant biochemists in the country. She worked for a government defense contractor developing medical countermeasures for biological weapons. Sebastian's voice was steady, but Emma could see the tremor in his hands. When I was 14, she discovered that her research partner, Dr. Marcus Vern, was selling classified formulas to foreign governments. Emma's breath caught. Marcus was your mother's colleague? More than that, they'd been lovers for 2 years. The word came out like broken glass. She confronted him about the stolen research, demanded he stop. Instead, he decided to eliminate the problem. The whiskey turned to acid in Emma's throat. Sebastian, no? He poisoned her with one of their own experimental compounds. Untraceable, that mimicked aggressive brain cancer. She died over 6 months, piece by piece, while I watched her forget my name, forget her life's work, forget everything that made her who she was. Emma moved closer, drawn by the raw pain in his voice. Did you know at the time? Not until 3 years ago? Sebastian's laugh was bitter. I spent my entire adult life believing my mother died of a disease, building Knight Industries as some kind of memorial to her brilliant mind. Then Marcus resurfaced as a tech entrepreneur, and I thought it was just coincidence, till I received an anonymous package with her real medical files. The pieces were falling into place now, creating a picture more horrifying than Emma had imagined. That's why you've been trying to destroy him. I've been trying to prove what he did. But Marcus covered his tracks perfectly. The compound he used was his own creation, never officially documented. The only evidence died with my mother. Sebastian's eyes found hers across the red-lit space. Until now. Ow. What do you mean? Think about it, Emma. Marcus didn't choose you randomly to get close to me. He's been planning this for 3 years, waiting for the right moment to finish what he started. Sebastian's voice grew deadly quiet. He's not just after my company. He wants to destroy me the same way he destroyed my mother. Slowly. Personally. Using the people I love, the words hit Emma like ice water. Do you think he's going to kill me? I think he's going to try to drive me insane first, make me watch you suffer the way I watched her. Sebastian moved to her then, his hands framing her face with desperate gentleness. That's why you have to leave, Emma. Tonight, disappear completely. I can't abandon my father? Your father is already dead. The brutal honesty of it knocked the air from her lungs. Emma pulled away from his touch, staggering backward. Don't say that. Emma, listen to me. The man in that video, that's not your father anymore. That's bait in Marcus's trap. He's probably been keeping him barely alive for months, just enough to control you. You don't know that? I know Marcus Verne. Sebastian's voice was iron. He doesn't make deals. He doesn't show mercy. He uses people until they break, then he discards them. Emma's phone buzzed again. Another message. Another video. This time it showed her father's hospital room from a different angle. The machines around his bed were more sophisticated than she'd realized. And there were armed guards stationed outside his door. But it was the time stamp that made her blood freeze. The video was live. Hello, Emma. Sebastian, Marcus Verne's voice, filled the penthouse through her phone's speaker. Neither of them had answered the call, but somehow he was connected anyway. I do hope you're enjoying your little lockdown. I thought it was time we all had a proper conversation. Sebastian grabbed the phone from Emma's hands. Marcus, Sebastian, my boy. Still playing the grieving son, I see. Tell me, have you shared our family history with your lovely girlfriend yet? Let her father go. Your quarrel is with me. Marcus's laughter was rich and warm and utterly terrifying. Oh, but that's where you're wrong. My quarrel is with the Knight family legacy. Your mother thought she could expose me, ruin my life's work. You think you can destroy my new empire? Both of you so arrogant, so self-righteous. Emma found her voice. What do you want? What I've always wanted, dear Emma. Justice. Your mother-in-law-to-be cost me 15 years of my life. I spent them in hiding, rebuilding my fortune, waiting for the perfect moment to return the favor. She was trying to stop a traitor, Sebastian snarled. She was trying to stop progress. My work could have saved millions of lives, but she was too narrow-minded to see the bigger picture, just like you, Sebastian. Always thinking small, always missing the real game. Emma's mind raced as she processed Marcus's words. You're not just after revenge. There's something else. It's very good. Emma, you always were smarter than your beloved gave you credit for. The approval in Marcus's voice made her skin crawl. Tell her, Sebastian. Tell her what her dear father has been working on in my private medical facility. Sebastian's face went white. What are you talking about? Dr. Thomas Rose, retired biochemist, former colleague of your late mother's. Did you really think it? It was coincidence that Emma happened to meet you on that train, that she happened to be exactly your type, with exactly the right tragic backstory to make you fall in love? Emma's world tilted. That's not possible. My father worked for a university, not the government. Your father worked on the same classified project as Sebastian's mother, dear girl. He was part of the team that helped her discover my little side business. The only reason he lived when she died was because I had bigger plans for him. The tablet in Sebastian's hands cracked as his grip tightened. You've been planning this for 15 years. I've been planning this since the day your mother destroyed my life. Thomas Rose has been working for me ever since, developing new compounds, new ways to cause untraceable death. His heart condition, my creation, his need for expensive experimental treatment, my design. All to ensure his daughter would do anything to save him. Emma sank to her knees as the horrifying truth crashed over her. Her father hadn't been an innocent victim. He'd been Marcus's unwilling partner for over a decade, forced to create weapons of murder to stay alive. The best part, Marcus continued, his voice filled with savage satisfaction, is that Thomas has been developing the perfect compound to kill you both. A binary poison that requires two separate components to become lethal. One part has been slowly building up in Sebastian's system through his weekly coffee deliveries. The other part is currently flowing through Emma's bloodstream, introduced through her father's medication when she visited him last week. Sebastian grabbed Emma's arms, pulling her to her feet. How long do we have? Oh, you have time. The compound activates through elevated heart rate and adrenaline. The more stressed you become, the faster it works. I'd estimate you have perhaps 6 hours before the symptoms become irreversible. Emma felt the room spinning around her. Everything she'd believed about her life, her choices, her father, had been lies within lies within lies. There has to be an antidote. Of course there is. Your father created that too. Bless his heart. 1 dose, enough for both of you. It's right here with me, along with dear Thomas. The video feed on her phone shifted to show her father more clearly. He was awake now, his eyes focused and filled with desperate regret. Tubes and wires connected him to multiple machines, but Emma could see her father's hands moving, forming shapes she recognized from childhood. Sign language. He was trying to tell her something. What do you want? Sebastian demanded. I want you to come to me, both of you. I want you to watch each other die the way I had to watch my life's work burn. I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything that matters. Marcus's voice turned silky. Like you have 6 hours to reach the Verne Medical Research Facility upstate? The address is being sent to your phone now. Come alone. Come together. I don't particularly care. But come quickly. Time, as they say, is not on your side. The connection ended, leaving them in red-tinted silence. Emma looked at Sebastian, seeing her own desperation reflected in his eyes. He's not going to let us live, no matter what we do. No, Sebastian agreed, but he made one mistake. What? Sebastian moved to a hidden panel in his wall, revealing a cache of equipment that looked anything but legal. Weapons, surveillance gear, and what appeared to be military-grade communication devices. He told us exactly where he is. And he gave us 6 hours to get there. Sebastian's smile was sharp as a blade. Marcus always did underestimate how far people will go when they have nothing left to lose. Emma watched him load weapons with practiced efficiency. You're not just a tech CEO. I told you I've been trying to prove what Marcus did to my mother for 3 years. Sebastian met her eyes as he strapped on body armor. I never said I was. Planning to use legal methods. Outside, the storm that had been threatening all evening finally broke. Lightning illuminated the city in stark white flashes as rain began to pound against the sealed windows. Emma felt something shift inside her. Chest, a flutter that might have been fear, or poison, or both. Sebastian, she whispered. I can feel it starting. The Verne Medical Research Facility rose from the Hudson Valley landscape like a monument to sterile ambition. Its glass and steel architecture gleamed under the storm clouds, every window blazing with cold fluorescent light. Emma pressed her face against the passenger window of Sebastian's armored sedan, her breathing shallow and rapid as the poison worked its way through her system. How are you feeling? Sebastian asked, his voice tight with controlled concern. His own symptoms had started an hour ago, subtle tremors in his hands that he tried to hide by gripping the steering wheel. It's like I'm drowning from the inside. Emma's words came out in short gasps. The binary compound was reacting to her elevated heart rate exactly as Marcus had promised. How much time do you think we have left? Maybe 2 hours? Sebastian pulled into the facility's circular driveway, noting the complete absence of other vehicles. The place looked deserted except for the guards he could see positioned at strategic points around the building's perimeter. Emma, before we go in there, I need you to know something. She turned to look at him, her dark eyes bright with fever and determination. What? I forgive you. For the stealing, for the lies, for all of it. What Marcus did to you, what he forced you to choose between, none of that was your fault. Emma reached for his hand, her skin burning hot against his. And I need you to know that falling in love with you was the only real thing in 6 months. Of lies, even if it kills me, I don't regret it. Sebastian brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her palm. It's not going to kill you. We're going to get out of this. Sebastian, her voice broke on his name. What if we can't? Save my father. What if this is all just another layer of Marcus's game? Before he could answer, the building's main entrance opened. Dr. Marcus Verne stepped out into the storm, looking exactly as Emma remembered him from their first meeting at the coffee shop. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of distinguished appearance that made people trust him instinctively. He wore a white lab coat over an expensive suit, and his smile was warm and welcoming. "My dear children," he called out, his voice somehow carrying clearly over the wind and rain. "Please, come inside before you catch your death. We have so much to discuss." Sebastian and Emma exchanged a look. They both knew they were walking into a trap, but they also knew they had no choice. The poison in their bloodstream was a timer they couldn't ignore. The building's interior was a maze of pristine corridors and laboratory spaces. Marcus led them deeper into the facility, past rooms filled with sophisticated equipment and research stations that hummed with quiet activity. Emma noticed that while the building had appeared deserted from outside, there were actually dozens of technicians and researchers working throughout the complex. "Impressive, isn't it?" "What?" Marcus said, noting her attention. 15 years of careful planning and substantial investment. This facility represents the future of biochemical research, unencumbered by government oversight or ethical committees. "You mean unencumbered by basic human decency?" Sebastian replied, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands growing more pronounced. "Morality is a luxury for people who don't understand the bigger picture, my boy." Your mother never grasped that concept either. They reached a central atrium dominated by a massive glass wall. Behind it, Emma could see her father's hospital room, though it looked different now. The space was larger, more sophisticated, filled with equipment she didn't recognize. Thomas Rose lay connected to multiple machines, but his eyes were alert, and tracked their movement as they approached. "Daddy," Emma whispered, pressing her palm against the glass. Thomas struggled to sit up straighter, his hands moving in the sign language he'd taught her as a child. His message was clear: trap, run, love you. "Oh, he can see you perfectly," Marcus said with satisfaction. "And hear you as well, though the sedatives make it difficult for him to speak clearly. Thomas, say hello to your daughter and her boyfriend." "Emma, baby, I'm so sorry." Her father's voice was weak, but audible through the intercom system. "I never wanted this. I tried to protect you, but he always found a way to hurt you instead." Emma's heart clenched as she saw the genuine anguish in her father's eyes. Marcus had forced him to do over the past 15 years. Thomas Rose had never stopped being her father. "It's okay, Daddy. We're going to get you out of here." "Actually, you're not." Marcus moved to a control panel beside the glass wall. "You see, Thomas has served his purpose admirably. His work on the binary compound was flawless. His guidance in manipulating Emma's emotions was invaluable, and his presence has brought you both here exactly as planned." Sebastian stepped forward, his own breathing becoming labored. "What are you really after, Marcus? You've got us both here. We're dying from your poison. What's the endgame?" "The endgame, dear Sebastian, is justice. But not just for your mother's interference in my work." Marcus's expression shifted, becoming something cold and predatory. "I want you to understand what it feels like to watch someone you love suffer because of choices you've made." He pressed a button on the control panel inside the sealed room. New machines activated around Thomas Rose's bed. Emma watched in horror as restraints emerged from the bed frame, securing her father's arms and legs. "Stop," she gasped. "Please, he's dying already. Don't hurt him anymore." "Oh, I'm not going to hurt him, Emma. You are."
Nice.
Marcus gestured to another panel, this one positioned directly in front of the glass wall. "The antidote you both need, so desperately, is indeed here. 1 dose, as I promised." "Ow." "But there's a catch." Emma's vision blurred as the poison sent spikes of pain through her nervous system. "What catch?" "The antidote can only be synthesized using a specific catalyst." "A catalyst. That can be extracted from Thomas's blood, but only if he's conscious and experiencing significant physical stress. The adrenaline reaction is essential to the process." Sebastian grabbed Marcus by the front of his lab coat. "You sick bastard." "Careful, Sebastian. Your heart rate is already dangerously elevated. Push it much higher, and the compound will reach your brain within minutes." Marcus smiled as Sebastian released him. The choice is simple. Emma activates the extraction process, causing her father considerable pain, but producing the antidote that will save both of your lives, or you both. Die here while Thomas watches, and I finally have the revenge I've waited 15 years to claim. Emma stared at the control panel, her hands shaking. The machine that would save their lives would torture her father, possibly kill him in the process. Well, but if she didn't activate it, Sebastian would die because of her father's work, her choices, her failures. There has to be another way, she whispered. There isn't, Marcus said gently. I've made sure of that. Every variable has been accounted for, every escape route eliminated. This is the moment, Emma. Choose who lives and who dies.
Alice.
Sebastian moved beside her, his face pale but his eyes fierce.
Emma.
Don't. We'll find another way.
Emma.
There is no other way, she replied, her voice hollow. And you know it. Inside the sealed room, Thomas Rose was watching his daughter with eyes full of love and understanding. He'd seen her face, knew what choice she was being forced to make. Slowly, painfully, he nodded to her. Emma's finger hovered over the activation button. The machine would cause him agony, but it might also give her the chance to save Sebastian. Her father, who had spent 15 years in hell to protect her, was asking her to let him pay the final price. I'm sorry, Daddy, she whispered. But as her finger moved toward the button, Sebastian's hand covered hers, stopping her. No, he said firmly. I have a better idea. Spun toward Marcus, pulling a small device from his pocket. It looked like a phone, but Emma recognized it as one of the military-grade communication devices from his penthouse arsenal. You made one crucial mistake, Marcus. You assumed I came here to negotiate? What are you talking about? The lockdown at my building, the sealed exits, the security protocols. You triggered them remotely, which means you created a digital connection between your systems and mine. Sebastian's smile was sharp as the device in his hand began to emit a soft blue light. This little toy has been mapping your entire network since we walked through your front door. Marcus's face went white. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Sebastian pressed a button on the device. Throughout the facility, alarms began to sound. Emergency lighting activated in the corridors, and Emma could hear the distant sound of steel doors slamming shut. Congratulations, Marcus. You just locked yourself in your own trap. The older man rushed to his control panel, his fingers flying over the interface. This is impossible. My security systems are military grade, so are mine. What? Years to prepare for this moment. Sebastian moved to Emma's side as Marcus worked frantically at his controls. The beautiful thing about your binary poison, Marcus, is that it requires both components to be lethal. Emma was poisoned through her father's medication, but I was never exposed through coffee deliveries. Emma stared at him. What are you saying? Saying I lied about being poisoned. I had to make you believe it was real so you'd react naturally when Marcus was monitoring us. Sebastian's expression was grim but determined. The symptoms you're experiencing are real, but you're not dying from a binary compound. You're dying from a slow-acting neurotoxin that your father was forced to administer, something completely different. But the antidote is right there in that room with your father. Not in some machine that requires torture to activate, but in a simple medical cabinet that Marcus kept you from seeing by controlling the camera angles. Emma felt hope and fury warring in her chest. How do you know all this? Because your father told me. Sebastian nodded toward the sealed room where Thomas Rose was now sitting up straighter, his hands moving in rapid sign language. He's been trying to communicate with us since we arrived, but Marcus kept interrupting. The compound you were given has an antidote, and the timing of your symptoms tells me we still have at least an hour before permanent damage occurs. Marcus spun away from his control panel, his distinguished facade cracking completely. You arrogant fool. You have no idea. What you've done? I've turned your own trap against you. This facility is now in complete lockdown. No one gets in or out without my authorization. Your staff, your guards, your escape routes, all sealed. And we're all trapped together, Marcus snarled, including your precious Emma, who is still dying regardless of your clever theories about binary compounds. That was when the lights went out completely, plunging them into absolute darkness, in the blackness. Emma heard her father's voice clear and strong for the first time in months. Emma, the antidote is in Cabinet 7, blue vial marked TRS7. But sweetheart, you need to know something about Sebastian. Something Marcus made me hide from both of you. Sebastian's voice cut through the darkness, tight with attention Emma had never heard before. Thomas, don't. She deserves the truth, son, especially now. Emma's blood turned to ice water as the implications of her father's words hit her. What truth? Sebastian Knight isn't just trying to avenge his mother's death, Emma. He's trying to cover up the fact that he caused it. Emergency power kicked in, bathing the facility in the same blood-red glow that had haunted Sebastian's penthouse hours earlier. Emma stood frozen between the two men who had shaped her life through lies, her father's words echoing in the crimson-tinted air like a death sentence. Sebastian Knight isn't just trying to avenge his mother's death, Emma. He's trying to cover up the fact that he caused it. That's not true, Sebastian said, but his voice carried a tremor that had nothing to do with poison symptoms. Thomas, you don't know what you're talking about, don't I? Thomas Rose struggled to sit up straighter in his sealed room, his eyes locked on Sebastian through the glass. I was there, Sebastian. I was part of the team that investigated Sarah's death. I know what really happened that night 15 years ago. Emma felt the world tilting around her as the neurotoxin sent fresh waves of pain through her nervous system. What night? What are you talking about? Marcus moved closer, his earlier panic replaced by savage satisfaction. Oh, this is even better than I planned. Tell her, Thomas. Tell her how her beloved Sebastian murdered his own mother. I didn't murder her. Sebastian's voice was raw, desperate. It was an accident, an accident. Thomas's laugh was bitter. You call breaking into a classified government facility to steal your mother's research an accident? You call triggering the emergency lockdown that trapped her inside with Marcus's prototype weapon an accident? Emma's legs gave out, and she collapsed against the glass wall, separating her from her father, the man she'd fallen in love with, the man she'd been willing to die for, had been lying about everything from the very beginning. Tell me it's not true, she whispered, looking up at Sebastian. Tell me you didn't kill your own mother. Sebastian's face was a mask of anguish in the red light. Emma, you have to understand. I was 19, stupid, angry. My mother had been working 16-hour days for months, coming home exhausted and paranoid. She kept talking about her research partner, how she suspected he was up to something dangerous, but couldn't prove it. So you decided to prove it for her, Thomas said quietly. You broke into the facility to steal the evidence she needed. I thought I was helping her, thought I was being the son she needed. Sebastian's hands clenched into fists. I disabled the security system, got into Marcus's lab, found files that proved he was selling classified research. But when I tried to leave, the emergency protocols activated. Marcus finished, his voice filled with dark pleasure. Lockdown procedures designed to contain biological hazards. Every exit sealed, every safety system engaged, including the automated release of prototype compounds for field testing. Emma stared at Sebastian, seeing him clearly for the first time. You trapped her inside with the poison. I tried to get her out. I spent 3 hours trying to override the lockdown, calling for help, screaming for someone to open the doors. By the time emergency teams could breach the facility, she'd been exposed to enough neurotoxin to guarantee a slow, agonizing death. And you've spent 15 years blaming Marcus for what you did, Thomas said. Using your guilt and rage to build an empire, telling yourself you were seeking justice, when really you were just running from the truth. Emma felt something break inside her chest, and she wasn't sure if it was her heart or the poison finally reaching her cardiovascular system. Everything you told me about your mother, about Marcus, about wanting revenge, it was all lies to cover up your own guilt. No. Sebastian dropped to his knees beside her, reaching for her hands. Yes, I caused the accident that killed my mother. But everything else was true. Marcus was selling classified research. He did poison her deliberately once she was exposed, making her death as painful as possible. He could have given her a quick, merciful end, but he chose to let her suffer. Because she cost me everything, Marcus snarled. Your little breaking and entering stunt exposed my entire operation. I lost 15 years of research, 15 years of careful planning. Sarah Knight's death was justice. She was an innocent woman who loved her son, Emma said, her voice barely audible. Both of you destroyed her for your own selfish reasons. Facility's intercom crackled to life with a new voice. Dr. Verne, we have a problem. The lockdown has triggered federal safety protocols. FBI and CDC teams are en route. Marcus cursed viciously, moving back to his control panel. How long until they arrive? 20 minutes, maybe less? Shh. Emma watched Marcus work frantically at his controls, trying to override the lockdown Sebastian had initiated. The irony was almost funny if it weren't so tragic. The same security protocols that had killed Sarah Knight 15 years ago were now trapping her killers inside their own web of lies. The antidote, she gasped, feeling her vision beginning to blur. I need the antidote now. Thomas pressed his hand against the glass, separating them. Cabinet 7, sweetheart. Blue vial marked TR7. But Emma, there's something else you need to know about the compound I was forced to create. What? Sebastian demanded. It wasn't designed just to kill Emma. It was designed to make her choose. Thomas's eyes filled with tears. The neurotoxin creates a specific psychological state, extreme emotional vulnerability, heightened empathy, an overwhelming need to protect others, even at the cost of your own life. Emma felt the pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. He's been manipulating my emotions, making me more likely to fall in love with you, more likely to sacrifice myself to save you. The compound amplifies existing feelings, Thomas explained. It doesn't create love where none exists, but it makes existing attraction feel overwhelming, desperate, all-consuming. Marcus wanted to ensure you'd be willing to die for Sebastian when the time came, because watching me lose someone I loved, the same way he lost his research, would be the perfect revenge, Sebastian said quietly. Except you don't really love me, Emma whispered. You love the idea of saving someone the way you couldn't save your mother. Sebastian's face crumpled. That's not true, isn't it? You've said it yourself, Sebastian. I stumbled into your world like a splash of color on a blank canvas. I represented everything genuine and real that was missing from your life. Emma struggled to her feet, using the glass wall for support, but I was never real. I was a construct, a carefully designed manipulation to make you feel like you could. Finally, be the hero you failed to be 15 years ago. Emma, please. No. She turned away from him, focusing on the sealed room where her father lay dying. The only real thing in this entire nightmare is that my father has been tortured for 15 years because of choices both of you made. And now he's going to watch me die because neither of you could face the truth about what you've done. Marcus looked up from his control panel, his face flushed with effort. How touching. But I'm afraid your little revelation doesn't change anything. The lockdown is permanent now. Even if I wanted to release it, the system won't respond to local commands.
What?
Are you saying? Sebastian demanded. I'm saying we're all going to die in here together. The federal teams will find our bodies in a few hours, along with evidence that Dr. Thomas Rose was developing illegal biological weapons. It's the perfect ending to my revenge. You're insane, Emma gasped. I'm thorough, Marcus corrected. This facility has a self-destruct protocol built into the lockdown system. If containment is breached or if unauthorized personnel attempt to enter the building, everything inside is incinerated to prevent the spread of biological hazards. Checked his device, his face going pale. The federal teams. When they try to breach the facility, boom, Marcus said cheerfully. Thomas dies, you die, Emma dies, and I finally get the justice I deserve. The only tragedy is that I won't survive to enjoy it. Emma looked at her father, seeing her own desperation reflected in his eyes. They had perhaps 15 minutes before. The federal teams arrived and triggered the destruction sequence. 15 minutes to find a way out of a trap that had been 15 years in the making. There has to be a way, she said, though she could barely form the words as the neurotoxin ravaged her nervous system. There is, Thomas said quietly, but you're not going to like it. Emma moved closer to the glass. Tell me. The self-destruct system has a manual override, but it requires simultaneous activation from 3 separate locations within the facility. 1 person in the main lab, 1 person in the security center, and one person in the medical bay. We split up, Sebastian said. Cover all 3 locations. It's not that simple. Thomas's expression was grim. Each location requires biometric confirmation from authorized personnel. Retinal scan, fingerprint analysis, and voice recognition. I'm authorized for the medical bay, Marcus for the main lab. Emma felt her heart sink. In the security center. Requires authorization from Dr. Sarah Knight. The system was never updated. After her death, the cruel irony of it hit all of them at once. The woman whose death had started this entire nightmare was the only person who could end it, and she'd been dead for 15 years. Wait, Sebastian said suddenly. Emma, your father, said the compound doesn't create emotions where none exist. It amplifies what's already there. So when I told you I loved you, when you told me you loved me, those feelings were real. Amplified maybe, but real. Sebastian moved to face her directly, which means this right here, right now. This is real too. Emma wanted to believe him, but the poison was making it hard to think clearly. What are you saying? I'm saying I love you enough to tell you the truth about everything, even if it means you hate me forever. Sebastian's voice was steady now, filled with a certainty she'd never heard before. And I'm saying that love, real love, means being willing to sacrifice everything to save the person who matters most. Before Emma could ask what he meant, Sebastian turned to Marcus. You want justice for what happened to your research? You want revenge for 15 years of exile? I'll give it to you. What kind of deal could you possibly offer me now? Sebastian held up the device he'd used to trigger the lockdown. Complete access to Knight Industries. Every patent, every algorithm, every piece of code I've developed over the past 5 years. Make me your partner instead of your victim, and we'll build something that makes your original work look like child's play. Marcus's eyes narrowed with interest despite himself. In return, you save Emma's life and let her father go free. Thomas has suffered enough for choices that weren't his to make. Sebastian, no, Emma whispered. Don't do this for me. I'm not doing it for you. Sebastian replied, his eyes never leaving Marcus. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing to be the person my mother raised me to be, instead of the person her death turned me into. Marcus studied Sebastian for a long moment. Weighing the offer, everything? Complete partnership? Everything. The older man smiled, and it was the most genuinely pleased expression Emma had seen from him all night. You know what, Sebastian? I accept. But as Marcus moved toward his control panel to begin the release sequence, Emma saw her father frantically. Signing behind the glass, his message was clear and desperate. Trap. He's lying, Run. Wasn't planning to honor any deal. He was simply buying time for the federal teams to arrive and trigger the self-destruct sequence that would kill them all. Sebastian saw Thomas's warning at the same moment Emma did. Their eyes met across the red-lit space, and she saw in his expression the same realization that was freezing her blood. They had perhaps 5 minutes left to live. Marcus Verne had just played his final, most devastating card. The countdown had begun. Emma could hear it in the distance, mechanical and merciless. The sound of federal vehicles approaching through the storm. Each rumble of thunder mixed with the growl of engines. Each flash of lightning illuminated the facility's windows like a strobe counting down to destruction. 4 minutes until the breach teams arrived. 4 minutes until the self-destruct protocol incinerated everything inside the building, erasing 15 years of lies, murder, and manipulation in a single cleansing fire. The antidote, Emma gasped, her vision tunneling as the neurotoxin reached critical levels in her bloodstream. I need to get to Cabinet 7. Sebastian moved to the sealed door leading to her father's medical bay, examining the biometric scanner. Thomas, how do we get in there? You don't, her father replied through the intercom. The room is designed to prevent contamination. Once sealed, it can only be opened from inside. Marcus laughed from his position at the main control panel, though his hands had stopped moving across the interface. Beautiful, isn't it? Every safety measure, every precaution, all designed to protect innocent lives. And here we are, about to be killed by our own safeguards. Emma pressed her face against the glass, looking at her father with eyes that burned from fever and unshed tears. Daddy, I'm so sorry for everything. For not being strong enough to save you. For falling in love with the man who killed Sebastian's. Mother, for every choice that led us here. Sweetheart, look at me. Thomas Rose struggled to sit up straighter, his voice growing stronger. You have nothing to apologize for. You've been the best daughter a man could ask for, even when the world was conspiring to destroy your happiness. I don't want to die without telling you how much I love you. You're not going to die. Thomas's eyes moved to Sebastian, then back to his daughter. But I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Emma nodded, though. The movement made her dizzy. The neurotoxin I was forced to create, it's not just killing you. It's changing your brain chemistry in specific ways. It's making you more empathetic, more willing to sacrifice yourself for others. But it also has one side effect that Marcus didn't anticipate. What side effect? Makes you temporarily psychic. Sebastian stared at Thomas through the glass. That's impossible, is it? We've been experimenting with consciousness-altering compounds for decades. The human brain is more malleable than most people realize, especially under extreme stress. Thomas's voice took on the authority of a man who'd spent his career pushing the boundaries of biochemical science. Emma, you've been experiencing flashes of insight all night. Knowing things you shouldn't know, sensing connections that weren't obvious. That's not intuition. That's your neurons firing in patterns they've never used before. Emma thought back. Through the evening, remembering moments when she'd seemed to understand things before they were explained. The way she'd known Marcus was lying about the antidote. The way she'd sensed Sebastian's guilt before her father revealed the truth about his mother's death. What does it mean? It means you can read the biometric scanner from here. Security system isn't just looking for retinal patterns and fingerprints. It's looking for specific brainwave signatures, neural patterns unique to authorized personnel. Thomas leaned forward urgently. If you can match Dr. Sarah Knight's neural signature, you can access the security center override. Sebastian grabbed Emma's arm. That's insane. Even if what you're saying about psychic abilities is true, Sarah Knight has been dead for 15 years. How could Emma possibly replicate her neural patterns? Because Emma has been exposed to trace amounts of the same compound that killed Sarah. Her brain is firing in similar patterns, creating neural pathways that mirror what Sarah experienced in her final hours. Thomas's expression was desperate, but determined. It's a long shot, but it might work. Marcus had stopped pretending to work at his control panel and was watching their conversation with fascination. How wonderfully poetic. The girl poisoned by my creation might be able to channel the ghost of my greatest enemy. 3 minutes, came the voice over the intercom. Federal breach teams in position. Emma looked at Sebastian, seeing her own desperate hope reflected in his storm-gray eyes. Even if I could somehow access the security center, we'd still need someone at the medical bay and the main lab to complete the override sequence. I can handle the medical bay from here, Thomas said. The controls are built into my medical equipment. But someone needs to get to the main lab. All eyes turned to Marcus, who smiled with genuine amusement. And why would I help you escape the justice I've waited 15 years to claim? Because you're not going to escape either, Sebastian said quietly. This isn't justice, Marcus. This is suicide. You'll die here with the rest of us. Better to die knowing I've finally balanced the scales than to live knowing Sarah Knight's son escaped consequences for his actions. Emma felt time running out like sand through her fingers. The federal teams were probably already positioning their breach equipment. Once they started cutting through the facility's reinforced doors, the self-destruct sequence would activate automatically. There has to be something you want, she said, fighting to keep her voice steady, something that would make you choose. Life over revenge. Marcus studied her with eyes that held decades of pain and rage. You know what I want? I want Sebastian to admit what he really is, not the grieving son seeking justice for his mother's murder. Not the brilliant entrepreneur, building a tech empire. I want him to admit that he's a frightened boy who killed his own mother through arrogance and stupidity, and who spent his entire adult life lying to himself about what really happened that night. Sebastian went very still. Emma could see. The war raging behind his eyes, 15 years of carefully constructed defenses, crumbling under the weight of truth. "You want a confession?" Sebastian said quietly. "I want honesty. For once in your miserable life, I want you to tell the truth about who you are and what you've done." The facility shook as something heavy impacted the main entrance. The federal teams were beginning their breach. Emma estimated they had perhaps 90 seconds before the doors gave way and triggered the self-destruct protocol. Sebastian looked at her, and in that look, she saw everything: love, regret, fear, and finally, acceptance. "You're right," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the red-lit space. "I killed my mother, not through malice but through arrogance and stupidity and the desperate need to prove I was worthy of her love. I've spent 15 years building an empire on the foundation of that lie, telling myself I was seeking justice when I was really just running from guilt." Marcus leaned forward, hungry for more. "I fell in love with Emma not because she was genuine and real, but because saving her made me feel like I could finally be the hero I failed to be when my mother needed me. I used her pain, her father's suffering, her willingness to sacrifice everything for love, all to feed my own need for redemption." Emma felt tears streaming down her face as Sebastian stripped away every defense, every justification, every comfortable lie. "I am not a good man seeking justice. I am a coward who's been hiding from the truth for so long that I forgot what it looked like. And if we die here tonight, it will be because I was too selfish and too afraid to face what I'd done until it was too late." The words hung in the air like a prayer or a funeral dirge. Marcus stared at Sebastian for a long moment, and Emma saw something shift in the older man's expression. Not forgiveness, but perhaps a kind of satisfaction that justice had finally been acknowledged. "Well," Marcus said quietly, "that's more honesty than I expected from Sarah Knight's son." He moved to his control panel and began entering commands. 60 seconds to breach," the voice announced over the intercom. Emma stumbled toward the corridor leading to the security center, her legs barely supporting her weight as the neurotoxin reached critical levels. Sebastian caught her arm, steadying her. "Emma, if this doesn't work, ... It has to work," she replied. "Because I'm not ready to die, and I'm not ready to let my father die. And despite everything that's happened, I'm not ready to let you die either. Even after everything I've done, everything I've lied about." Emma looked into his eyes and saw the truth there, painful and raw and finally honest, especially because of that. The Sebastian who could admit his failures, who could choose honesty over self-preservation, who could sacrifice his carefully constructed image to save people he loves. That Sebastian is worth saving. She pressed her lips to his in a kiss that tasted like tears and poison and desperate hope. "Now go help Marcus while I try to channel a dead woman's neural patterns." The security center was a cramped room filled with monitors and control panels. Emma collapsed into the chair facing the main biometric scanner, her vision blurring as she tried to focus on the retinal detection device. 30 seconds to breach. She closed her eyes, trying to access whatever psychic abilities the neurotoxin had awakened in her brain. In her mind, she reached out, searching for some trace of Dr. Sarah Knight's neural signature. Some echo of the woman who had died in agony 15 years ago. Nothing. 20 seconds. Emma pressed her forehead against the scanner, tears of frustration and fear streaming down her face. She was going to fail. They were all going to die because she couldn't perform an impossible miracle with abilities she didn't understand, but then, in the darkness behind her closed eyes, she felt something. A presence, warm and gentle and achingly familiar. Not Sarah Knight's consciousness, but something deeper. The neural patterns of a mother's love. The brainwave signature of someone who would sacrifice everything to protect her child. Emma opened her eyes and pressed her palm to the scanner. "I love you." To Mom, the system chimed its acceptance. Initiating emergency override. All personnel evacuate immediately. In the main lab, Marcus completed his sequence just as the federal teams breached the outer doors. In the medical bay, Thomas Rose pressed his palm to his scanner, his eyes locked. On his daughter's face through the glass wall, the facility's self-destruct. Sequence aborted with a sound like the world taking its first breath after nearly drowning. Emergency lighting switched to normal illumination as blast doors threw out. The building began to open. Emma collapsed in the security center chair, her body finally giving in to the neurotoxin's effects. But she could hear her father's voice over the intercom, weak but triumphant. "Cabinet 7, sweetheart. Blue vial marked TR7. Sebastian." Found her there minutes later, unconscious but breathing. The federal agents found them both in the medical bay. Emma's father administering the antidote while Sebastian held her hand and whispered promises he finally intended to keep. Marcus. Vern surrendered without resistance, his 15-year quest for revenge finally exhausted. As federal agents led him away, he paused beside Sebastian's chair. "Your mother would be proud of the man you became tonight," he said quietly. "Not the man you've been for 15 years, but the man you chose to be in the end." Emma woke up 3 days later in a federal medical facility, her body free of poison, but her memories intact. Sebastian was asleep in the chair beside her bed, his hand still holding hers. Through the window, she could see her father walking in the facility's garden. Weak, but alive, and finally free. The man she loved was broken, honest, and willing to spend the rest of his life earning the redemption he'd been seeking in all the wrong places. The father who'd raised her was safe, healing from 15 years of manipulation and forced complicity. The monster who'd orchestrated their suffering was behind bars, where he would spend whatever remained of his life. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was something better. It was real. Emma squeezed Sebastian's hand, and when he opened his eyes, she saw in them not the polished confidence of a tech billionaire or the desperate guilt of a man haunted by his failures, but simply the love of someone who had finally learned the difference between seeking redemption and earning it. "Good morning," she whispered. "Good morning," he replied, and kissed her forehead like a promise. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. But for the first time in months, Emma wasn't afraid of what they might bring. She had survived poison and betrayal in the cruelest kind of love. She'd channeled the spirit of a dead woman and saved the lives of everyone she cared about. She had learned that sometimes the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves, and that the truth, no matter how painful, is always worth fighting for. Some storms, she realized, aren't meant to be weathered. They're meant to wash away. Everything falls, and leave only what's strong enough to survive. Emma rose, closed her eyes, and listened to the sound of her father's laughter drifting through the window. Sebastian's steady breathing beside her, and her own heart beating with the rhythm of someone who had stared death in the face and chosen life instead. Asterisk comment below. Have you ever discovered someone you loved was hiding a devastating secret? How far would you go to save someone who betrayed you? Subscribe for more emotionally intense stories that will keep you awake at night thinking about the characters long after the story ends. The end.